My name is Goose Sussy, and you're watching The God Money Show. Thank you so much for clicking this video. God Money is a channel where we talk about business, personal development, real estate, and God money. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell anybody and everybody you want to hear it if you like it. My goal is to share my story, share tips that have worked for me and my family. These aren't theories, these are things that have actually worked. And it's also to interview Christian leaders and businessmen and women to share how they became who they are today and anything that might be able to help you along the way. I didn't have anybody holding my hand. I am trying to make it as easy as possible for you to succeed and for you to get to your dreams, to reach your goals. Let's have a great show. I hope you enjoy it, and please take notes and comment below anything that you get from these videos. Again, if you like them, thumbs up, subscribe. If you don't, have a great day anyways. Let's start the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is that you're watching this. This is the God Money Show. This is episode 2. My super special guest today is Michael BOERNER. He is the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. I'm super excited to just dive in and get some business nuggets for you guys. And also for myself, I'm constantly trying to get better at this, at life, at business. Michael and I, we do go to the same church. There has been many times I've got to hear him speak, and you can just tell that God is all over him when he speaks. One thing this isn't a platform for us to shove religion down anybody's throat or to try to get you to change your mind. That's up to you. What this is just a program that we're trying to spotlight what God has done in our lives, in many businesses' lives, and families. It is okay to have money, to be successful, and to still believe in God. Those can all intertwine. So without further ado, Michael, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Great to be with you, Goose.
Super excited.
Episode 2, I find this interesting. The day it's being shot is it okay to say the date?
Yeah.
February 2nd, which is also Groundhog's Day.
Oh,
so we
yeah.
may have to repeat a number of things.
Yeah, right on. No, that's good. Michael, I've got a list of questions. Yeah. You don't know what they are, but I'm going to just go through these and just share what's on your heart. And anything that just you feel to share, please do. Because there's a lot of people out here that's going to be all across the board as far as levels in life and seasons in life.
You bet.
And I think it's important to showcase that it's not always like this, and it's not always like this. So,
true.
If you wouldn't mind, please just start with who you are. And that could be just how you were raised, where you were born, and kind of where you got the idea or the thought of like, Michael BOERNER is actually a businessman, how that kind of happened. Just kind of go from there.
Yeah, you bet. Well, way to go putting this together, by the way. This is
Thank you.
A lot of energy when you're running your own business. So compliments to you on organizing all the lights and cameras and production. So
Thank you.
Way to go.
Thank you.
So I was raised right here in Boise.
Okay.
So I grew up here, went to high school, Bora High School.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So loved being a Boisean.
Yeah.
Back then it was not quite what it is today. But moved to Phoenix to go to college and study computer science, and ended up having a kind of a major shift in my life.
Okay.
Ended up becoming a Christian in my very early 20s.
Okay.
And wanted to actually take that tremendous experience for me and be able to utilize it to encourage others around this concept of really, if you know the truth sets you free.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's something about not just spiritual truth, but also truth about marriage, parenting, business, leadership.
Yeah.
And when people get in touch with things that can really optimize their life, it's amazing how that brings joy and blessing and fruitfulness in so many arenas. And so I ended up getting a real passion for media. And at the time, this is late 80s.
Okay.
So back then, the most impressive and important things were television commercials
Sure.
and radio spots and billboards and yellow pages.
Yeah.
For those who remember what that is. So I just ended up having a passion to find ways to take incredible kernels of life and truth and things that would bring blessing and encouragement and put it in the media so we could scale it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a particular love for media, it was more of a concept of how do you bring something to a position that you can have more impact at a larger scale.
Right.
And so back then, that was the way you influenced society.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up moving back up to Idaho. I met my wife Natalie there in Phoenix.
Who's amazing, by the way.
She is amazing. So we've been married 32 years in March. And
Congratulations.
so we've got 4 daughters
Yeah.
who are between 19 and 26. And just an amazing journey of being a dad. And so we moved back up to Boise and started our family and then started a ministry and a media production company that for 15 years worked on innovation to find ways to use broadcast television, earned media, PR, events, to do things that would really be an honor to, again, those topics of spiritual growth, marriage, parenting, and many other things that would really bless the community. And so we really had a lot of extremely fun times working with churches from all different Christian denominations to work together in unity to do things that would be innovative and would make a statement about something that could be a real blessing to the community. So, example of that, we used to produce commercials that would run on NBC, CBS. We'd buy spots in the Super Bowl here in our local market.
Wow, awesome.
One year we did a Super Bowl contest before we'd ever seen anyone else do one.
Yeah.
We decided to say, hey, why don't we allow people in the community to make their own commercial?
Oh, that's
And
cool.
then we would have kind of a panel of celebrity judges, and we'd select a winner and put their commercial in the Super Bowl. Well, Fox News heard about that and called and said, we love this idea. And so they flew me to Salt Lake because they couldn't find a satellite link timing in Boise for prime time. So I flew down there. They picked me up in a limo. There I am on prime time being interviewed by John Kasich on this show on Fox. And they ended up showing the commercial a few different times. And they had Toby Elkin from Advertising Age magazine and talking about how this ad on the theme of forgiveness, what impact it would make. It was quite a fun experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I had no idea about all that.
And then another example of trying to do something that's unique was we decided, how do we demonstrate this concept of kindness and forgiveness? And so we met with a group of leaders in the community and said, hey, why don't we demonstrate grace? The concept of kindness and giving and generosity is something you don't see a lot of anymore.
No.
And so we thought, why don't we make a modern day parable on what grace looks like today?
Wow.
There used to be grace periods on your credit card payment. No
Right.
more, right? There's not a lot of grace to go right on it. And so we thought, okay, let's do something that demonstrates that in a very tangible way. So we met with this group of leaders. They said, hey, that's a great idea, let's do it. So we met with the mayor. It was actually Mayor Beater at the time in Boise.
Boise, okay.
And we asked him, hey, Mayor, could we take over the city hall on a Saturday in December to announce to the entire metro area that anyone has unpaid parking tickets could bring them to City Hall, and there would be a whole bunch of pastors there with checkbooks to sit down and write checks to pay for their tickets because they've broken the law. It's a small law, not a small infraction, but they do owe a fine. But an example of grace is when you don't deserve something.
Sure.
Grace is
Right.
when it's unmerited favor.
Yeah.
And so he said, wow, that's a fun idea. Sure, happy to do that.
How did you come up with that?
I don't know.
Of the parking ticket. Where did that
Not
come
sure.
from?
I was just looking for thoughts and ideas of how can we demonstrate something where there's been a wrong that can be righted without having to pay for it or earn it yourself. Because that's the definition of grace.
Right.
When you don't deserve it.
Right.
And so, I don't know, it was just one of the many crazy things we came up with. And so he said, yes, let's do it. So we had a press conference the previous Tuesday, called all the press, and they all came out, had a huge amount of news. And so we had this giant group of people that showed up at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning in December to line up to have their parking tickets paid in full. And so we set it up with the bank. That signature card made it so all the pastors could actually sign their names on the checks, and whatever that amount was, one gal had, I think, 55 tickets. And it was just an incredible thing. She was in tears. And one gal said, hey, I feel so bad you're paying this. You want to pay half of them?
Oh.
I was standing there when that happened, and the pastor said, no, sweetheart, we're going to pay them all.
Yeah.
Just like
I
the way
love
God's
that.
grace works.
I love that.
And so those are the types of things we had the honor of doing. And then we worked with Gary Smalley for years, one of the top marriage experts, was on his board of directors for years. And we used to have major events. And We would put them on, in many cases, free of charge. We had 8,500 people at the stadium there in Nampa, and then, gosh, I think 3,200 people signed up for follow-up groups afterwards. And just so many things that you can do if you focus on unity, if you focus on doing things together and don't need the credit, and be able to put it out there to be able to be a blessing. So spent 15 years of my life doing that and just absolutely loved it. And then in about 2005, 2006, we started looking at what was going on with the shift. What people forget, there was no video on the internet before 2005.
Right. No YouTube, I think, started at like 06 or something.
There's no YouTube. We didn't have any video because, you know what? It was dial-up.
Right.
So about 05, 06, we had this lightning fast thing called broadband hit at 256K. It was just screaming. So we began to realize all of our previous time and energy we'd spent telling stories that would be a blessing. We start to realize that, wow, people were searching for things on the internet, but there was no video. So we thought, what if we put video content out into the internet where you could actually, I know this seems common now, but go to a computer screen, click a mouse, and have subject matter expertise instantly available on video, like an expert looking you across the coffee table, giving you advice on marriage, parenting, leadership, spiritual encouragement. So we set out to create this thing called iQuestions.com. And it was a number of pastors and others we started. And so that's kind of what began, and we started setting out to raise about $15 million to launch this major new brand.
Wow.
And we quickly, it's a long story short, but we ended up finding that we did not want to have professional venture capital money because those types of structures require somewhere between a 3 to 5 to 7 year exit. They need a liquidity event of some kind to get their return of capital.
Build it to sell it.
And that's the last thing we wanted to do, was build it to sell it.
Yeah.
And so we had to go the hard route and go friends, family, others. So we only got to about $5 million in capital.
Still though, that's a good chunk.
It was a good chunk. The budget called for 15.
Yeah.
Because we're building a national brand. I'll never forget when we met with a venture capital firm. One of the investors said, "I'd like to see, before I invest in this, what a VC firm thinks about this idea." So we shared with him the concept and the brand and the process. He asked a lot of questions, and then he said, "I think this could be a $1 or $2 billion IPO."
Wow.
And
were you thinking that?
No, I wasn't thinking that at that level. And I said to my affiliate, I said, "Did he say billion?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Tell me, why do you think it has a $1 billion or more valuation?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, primarily because the authors and the experts that you're bringing into this already have a vast audience of millions of followers, best-selling authors who had sold millions of books and tapes. And so we had a 7-step vetting filter that allowed us to be able to select only the best."
Wow.
And because Gary Smalley was involved, he would call a number of his friends, and so we had all these who's who of that space together. And so the challenge was, though, you needed to be prepared to have to sell it. And we really didn't want to do that. We also didn't want to take it public because we wanted to keep the content in a way that could really be, friendly to faith-based communities as well as employers, etc. So
you didn't want to lose control of what you guys were building.
Right. We really felt the content was the true differentiator, and so we started building the technology. We launched it at a big giant conference. We won first place for the most amazing booth. We had a 20-foot by 40-foot booth where we launched the whole concept. And I'll never forget, on the press conference where the press was there, I mean, this was like possibly the very first video website.
Wow.
No one had built one before that we could find anywhere in North America.
Yeah.
Because no one had a video website before.
Right.
Because this is a brand new ability to actually build a video website from scratch.
Yeah.
Because no one did that before because there was no way to play video.
It's so interesting. There's going to be, I think, some people that watch this and they don't even know what that was like. Like, I'm 32, and so I feel like my generation, that like gap is kind of like the last that had what our parents had, but also what kids have today.
Yeah. This is 16 years ago.
Right, which isn't that long ago.
Well, what's really amazing is, there wasn't an iPhone until 2007. There was no iPad until 2010.
Yeah, I didn't really realize that.
And we didn't just until fairly recently have a scenario where the vast majority of everyone in society has a smartphone that's now capable of streaming video.
Right.
That's a very recent phenomenon.
Yeah.
And when you're a large brand, let's say like a Kroger that's 110 years old, Fred Meyer and other, they do over $100 billion in revenue. That seems like last Tuesday that this just changed to them.
Right.
These large legacy organizations are having a hard time catching up at this level of change. And so what we ended up finding, when business and opportunity really flourishes is often at inflection points where you have new infrastructure that enables new business models.
Right, yeah.
And so, for example, one of the most common ones that we're familiar with is Netflix.
Yeah.
Well, the legacy incumbent leader was Blockbuster. And at their heyday, I don't know if you're old enough to have
Oh yeah,
Blockbuster
I actually
device.
knew, I was buddies with a grandchild Blockbuster.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, having 4 girls, we used to drive back and forth to Blockbuster all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, Cinderella was out, sold out. What's
Yeah.
happening?
Be kind, rewind. The
Yeah,
whole
all
thing.
that.
Yeah.
The concept of sold out is, of course, gone.
Yeah.
erased. But what's interesting is, every business really is capable of a maximum efficiency.
Guys, if you're getting anything out of this, please comment below, like, subscribe. This is amazing. I can't wait to go back through this. Please keep going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you think about you've got an amazing business here. I'd love to hear
Thank
your
you.
story,
Thank
seeing
you.
the tour, and what your operation here is doing is designed to be highly efficient, really good margins, great service, great brand,
Yep.
and continue to grow it and accelerate, its scale.
I love that you didn't say good, because you can't just be good anymore. You have to be
It's really
great.
not enough.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's almost expected.
It really is.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, well, being extremely customer focused, and being passionate about their experiences, of course, what made the great brands like Apple and many others
Right.
very successful. But when you think about infrastructure, what happened is you had a scenario much like in the old days when the railroads came in, transformed the communities. In the more modern days when the highways, that's infrastructure.
Right.
Today, the new highway, of course, is broadband infrastructure. And so now, you can be, Mark Zuckerberg and be in your dorm and use servers and others. Now it's even easier where you can pay by the SIP for AWS or Azure, etc. Well, when you have broadband infrastructure that can suddenly stream a video,
Yeah.
well now, wait a second, you can actually scale at a whole other level. The problem is that many of us that have been doing something for a very long time, we're stuck in our lane of the way we think.
Right.
Why didn't the people at Blockbuster come up with Netflix? They had an opportunity to buy Netflix for $50 million.
50?
50. They passed.
That's
And
too bad.
in just about every industry, what you have is an incumbent thinking that's got a very difficult time thinking outside the box. And so that's why startups are almost always the one that bring innovation.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the valuation, for example, I looked it up a while back, the height of Blockbuster's value is about $5.5 billion. Well, Netflix, their valuation last time I looked was about $240 billion. It also changed from a transactional business to a software as a service subscription-based business, which means now you're paying a monthly subscription to access. But I think what's very fascinating is it dramatically improved the customer experience.
Yeah.
Not just by a little.
Right.
You just have to drive to the store twice.
Right.
And then you click a button and it's there. But what did it do to the cost curve? It bent it down like nothing we've ever seen. It got rid of almost all real estate and most of the employees and had an actually much more efficient scale, value, and better customer experience. So when it comes to business, this is an incredible time to be alive because there's so many new models that you can actually go out and innovate a much better method of being effective at delivering value.
And what you just said right there, there's a lot of people, I think, because I was in that position where I have all these ideas, right? All these big ideas, what I think are big ideas. But then I get stuck on am I built for it? And am I really that entrepreneur? Like, when did you know that you were that entrepreneur? Because I mean, you got some big thing behind you, which I love, by the way. And even, by the way, if you don't know the difference between a million and a billion, you should really look it up. It just visually, it is insane. It is absolutely insane. But would you just kind of touch a little bit on, like, I don't know if it was like a moment or if it was a mentor that you're like, that's how I want to be like that. Or like, what was it that you decided, I have what it takes, I'm called to do this, this is what I know I need to do, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question, kind of the common question of, is it nature or nurture?
Yeah.
Were you born that way or did you learn it?
Right.
And I'm very convinced that you can learn just about anything.
Yeah.
I'm a huge reader, and reading business and process books and biographies are an extraordinary way to think, because the more tangential you can get your thinking, the more unique it becomes.
Yeah.
And
I like
so
that.
for some reason growing up, I have always had this passion to get people to work together. There's something about community,
Okay.
and realizing that if we bring people together, you can do things. I mean, like just even back to, I don't know, being in grade school. Hey, let's get everybody together and let's like do bike jumps. And
Oh, yeah.
everybody watch,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
But somebody's just
Did you
got.
BMX? Were you a BMXer?
We didn't have BMX back then. We had banana bikes. With
with
big
the
old
big old
banana
seat? Yeah.
There was no shocks involved. So you landed hard.
Yeah.
But the ability to think about, hey, what could we do that would be fun by putting people together and creating something that would be enjoyable.
Yeah.
But it would take a group to do it. And so that's part of it. So I think some people have some sort of a natural tendency, but at the same time, I've always been a vision guy. At the same time, I read a book by Michael Gerber, probably one of my most favorite books of all time, called The E-Myth.
Okay.
And E-Myth stands for entrepreneurial myth. So Michael Gerber, E-Myth Revisited is the book. And his premise is that 80% of businesses are going to fail within 5 years when they start. That's a huge failure rate.
Yeah. But
in the book he talks about how there's another type of business that has an 80% success rate. They're called franchises, which is an interesting contrast. And his premise is essentially that if you're a welder and you love welding and suddenly I don't like my job, I don't like my bosses, I'm going to go start my own welding company. The welding skill is not necessarily the same skill to run the welding business.
Correct.
Two different things.
Yeah.
And the myth, the entrepreneurial myth, the aha moment means, oh, hey, I know how to do this. I'm going to go start a business.
Yeah.
The truth is, it's two different skills. Now, you can be capable of doing both.
Right.
Two phenomenal examples of that would be Bill Gates, who started out as a teenager, made it all the way to chairman of his company and kept control the whole time. Same thing with Mark Zuckerberg and a few others. That's a really rare person who can go all that far.
I heard Gary Vee say, he said the hardest part about being an entrepreneur, which is almost exactly what you just said, was making the switch from entrepreneur to executive.
Exactly right.
And it's been the toughest part for me, is making that shift. My wife is amazing at it. She's technically the CEO of our company, Idaho Sports Racing, and she's like wired for it. Like she just knows, she can see a process, change it, and then she's good. But yeah, that is a huge, because I think I'm too emotional with the entrepreneur part that gets in the way of being the full-blown executive that I should be all the time.
Well, what you just described is an extraordinarily important lesson for any of us who want to grow a business to scale. Because what Gerber talks about in the book is the visionary sees things, but what really makes a business work are systems, processes, procedures. And so, I was a very big vision guy, but ever since I read that book, I literally believe it changed my mental DNA.
Wow.
Because ever since that moment, literally the moment I finished that book, I began to see through an interpretive grid of systems and processes and where they weren't.
Will you say that book one more time?
Yeah, it's called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. The E-Myth Revisited is what it's called.
Okay.
But what's phenomenal about that book is he says, hey, if you want to start a pie shop, great. But when you start your pie shop, think about the fact that you're going to be starting 5,000 pie shops eventually.
Right.
Which makes you think as a process-minded person. And what happens when you read the book, you're going to start seeing processes or the absence of them everywhere.
Yeah.
But when you have a process and you put it into place, this is why McDonald's can be profitable when it's being run by teenagers.
Right.
Why? Because they're not running decisions, they're running processes.
Right.
There's almost no decisions being made.
Right.
They're following a very well-defined process. And so once you think about process, the other thing that would really, I think, encourage most people who are running a business is he makes the point that you can never really go on vacation if you don't have a process-driven business.
100%. Because
you'll hit an adolescent ceiling in your company you can't get away from.
Yeah. Because
you're not having a business based on systemic organization.
You have a secured job. You secured your job.
Basically. You know too many things. Everybody comes to you for answers, and it feels nice until you're not feeling so nice that you can never leave it.
Right.
And so if you want to have a valuation of your company, when someone comes in to acquire an enterprise, they value it on a number of things, but one of the things they're looking for is how well documented it, how well will it do if the principals are no longer there, how well can this scale if a new group came in, if the people were hit by a bus, how well did you leave behind exactly how this business works. And so I love the entrepreneurial spirit of the younger generation now. I mean, they just think, hey, I could do this, let's create an app, let's do this. It's amazing. But what we have to also figure out is how to add value to processes that will scale, as well as figuring out how the culture that honors people. So you can do those two things and enjoy the building process itself.
Michael, that's amazing. I love that. And I'm thinking right now of all the things that I need processes for.
Yeah.
Because
there's a good list everywhere.
Running, right? Just running. And I do think there's one thing I pride myself on is doing stuff I know nobody else is doing. Like driving 11 hours to go for a 15-minute meeting. But in a weird way.
You care about relationships.
Right. No, thank you. But stuff like that, like that's not duplicatable.
Actually, I believe it can be.
Okay.
But you have to sow into people what I would call the owner's spirit.
The why, yeah.
Because you have
that's
the
good.
owner's spirit, which is the why.
Yeah, that's good.
And when people come into the company, the three best ways I can describe a person actually is a dear friend and mentor of mine, Ron Price, has a phenomenal leadership company here in Treasure Valley, Price and Associates. And he said, that he actually told me this. He goes, your view of a really great teammate or coworker, employee are really three words. Things where people do things rapidly, thoroughly, and cheerfully.
Love that.
And so when we've got teammates who do things really rapidly, get on, let's go, they do it really thoroughly, and they do it with a great attitude, cheerfully.
I love that.
Well, that's the spirit of an owner.
Yeah.
That's what an owner usually does that builds a great business.
Yeah.
Well, what's the why behind that? Because if we serve, we actually bless people in a way
100%.
that it honors them.
So Michael, what were you taught early on as a child about money, what to do with it, if it's good, if it's bad, to invest it, to save it? What were you taught?
Yeah. Well, I had a different view from both my mom and my dad. They were unfortunately divorced when I was about 7.
Okay.
And so my mom was quite conservative with money, did a great job on it, spent a lot of years as a single mom, where probably my highest respect in the world is for single moms who have to deal with providing for family.
Yeah.
My dad ended up having a relationship to money where he made a good amount of it. He had an insurance agency and did well, won a number of awards, but he was very generous. He gave a lot of it away.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, I was raised with more of a thinking and feeling of being willing to take risk.
Yeah.
And just with the default on being generous. And generous with money.
Yeah.
And let's help people. Let's give it away. Let's tithe. Let's do what we need to be doing to give it away.
Right.
At the same time, I think we have to be cautious with the fact that we do need to be properly saving. And whose money is it? If you're dealing with investor money,
So good.
if it's somebody else's hard-earned post-tax money, you better be watching extremely well.
Yeah.
And so we've got a lot of accountability to money, but I also believe that you have to take risks in order to be able to get the reward.
Yeah.
And many people just don't want to risk.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing, but that's also why the people who have the rewards deserve them, because of the risk that is equal to that risk that they take.
Do you feel like your risk meter is higher or lower than the average person?
Yeah, it's high. It's too high.
Okay.
So I get.
That's why you get
Well,
things done, though.
I see all these books that we take risks. And where's the books that talk about not doing it? So I've had a default to take risks.
less of it.
Yeah, I've been an optimist. When I was a kid, I'd see a gumball machine that says out of order. So, it's out of order because if you put a quarter in, I'm sure it'll give you like 5. So let's try it. So I've been a very big.
All things work for you.
Yeah, well, and it's funny when you have the combination of optimism, critical thinking.
Yeah.
If you're an optimist without critical thinking, you're just going to be in a hole.
You're right. Yeah.
But also the ability, what I found is a level of tenacity. For whatever reason, I ask a lot of questions and I'm pretty persistent.
Yeah.
And what I found is that most people are persistent to like a level 2 or 3. If you'll go persistence to a level 7, 8, 9, 10, that's what Lewis and Clark had.
Right.
They had a level of persistence. It was like, we don't know exactly how far this is. We know we only have supplies for a certain amount of time. We'll be out of them and we're going to have to kill and eat along the way.
Right.
They have a level of persistence and an ability to know there will be obstacles. They don't know what they are. But only a persistent entrepreneur will really get through things, because it's all about solving problems.
100%.
And in any business plan, you're going to find it's going to have to be pivoted probably multiple times. And any investor or any VC firm knows when they look at a 20-year-old with an idea that they're green and they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And their business plan, no matter what it is flawed. But if you've got persistence and the ability to be a critical thinker, and also someone who's got high integrity, who will honor someone even when it hurts, that's how you get through life. So I was raised in a family that was very encouraging, huge amount of appreciation and hugs and affection. And so I'm just also a big believer that we need to be encouragers, others-centric. And so our persistence also needs to be set up so it is honoring, because sometimes it can be like a tank. But you don't want to use tanks on people. You want to use those on problems.
That's good. Yeah, and the more problems you're able to solve, the more successful, whatever that means to you, you'll be. Like, I love that. So I know I just asked you about money when you were growing up, but how has that changed today? Like, what is money to you today?
It's funny, as you get older, you start really thinking, 55, so...
You're 55?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You look great, man.
So I know I look 54. The ability to think about money is different. You know, it's good to not be really worried about it when you're young.
Yeah.
Because you need to take risks, and you'll find you're going to lose it several times probably before you really figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's more thinking about legacy. It's thinking about providing for kids, grandkids.
Yeah.
How many grandkids yet? But you start really thinking about, okay, how do I also set this up so that I can give to make an impact? Because you start to go from making something that you care about to something you care about for the long term.
Right. Yeah.
How do I leave a mark that is
Legacy living.
That is a blessing, not for
Yeah.
your name to be remembered, but for
Right.
you to make an impact, so that you really realize I did something more than just provide for me and my family.
Yeah.
And so you want to provide for your generations, hopefully down the line, but also what can we do to impact society?
Right.
What can we do to impact the nature of our culture?
Yeah.
And if we're not thinking about that, it's real easy to be thinking about things.
Pretty selfish. Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm really trying to work now, and the things we do with our new company and the technology that we're blessed to be able to have has a lot of opportunity to impact multiple categories in life.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I had this from a young boy. I don't even remember what movie it was, but there was the picture of Grandpa above the fireplace. Mm. I always wanted to be I wanted to be able to create something to where my family's family wants to be able to look at Grandpa and be like, if I could only do what he did. That's right. I think I had a step grandpa, and he taught me how to fish, tie flies. He loved on us. We lived with my grandparents for a little bit, and he was that guy for me. So I don't know. I think there's just something about thinking outside just yourself in the now. There's a piece about it.
That's right.
Right?
Most of what we're doing today is standing on someone else's shoulders.
100%.
If you're standing on pavement, somebody actually went through and carved a road. It was gravel at one time, and they had the idea to put that down, and that's exactly right. Because if we don't think about doing that, it won't happen automatically.
Yeah, I have a pretty big problem with the self-mades. Because really? Nobody taught you anything? Yeah. You didn't take anything from anybody to learn?
Well, the book Outliers kind of prove that's not true.
Right, yeah. Right. Maximum, what's that guy's name? Outlier?
Outliers was Malcolm Gladwell.
Malcolm, yeah, that's right. Awesome, great. And then, do you have, you're investing, do you have a certain money vehicle that you like to put your money towards? I know being a business owner, we're constantly trying to make sure that our businesses are healthy and there's plenty of cash in those, but any investing tips that you have that has worked for you?
For me and for my career, it's been primarily all investing in our own companies. Okay. And putting virtually everything we've got into the vertical that we're focused on. Yeah. If there's an exit from that, it's usually all going into the next venture. Yeah. And so for me, the stock market, etc., played around a bit about it, but what I find in those areas, you've got to give yourself to a level of competency to it that you really understand it well. And so if you're an entrepreneur that's got a growing enterprise, often that's where, especially if you're a founder and someone who's really focused on growing a business, right? It's usually all you can do to just keep up with that. Yeah. Especially if it's growing at a pace. Yeah. And so, my time and energy with investing money has usually been specifically in the company that I'm founding, that is getting all my energies to make sure it gets to the place where it can have high value for the team and the overall investors.
Michael knows his company. Michael knows when he has excess money, that's where he's going to put it because he knows that he can grow that company. I don't have stocks. I think it's just numbers on a screen to me. I don't understand them. Yeah.
Some people do well with it.
Some people do very well with it. But what I'm getting at is know what you're putting your money into. Don't just throw it at the next big thing because somebody else is doing it. Do your research. Have as much confidence as you can, knowing you can't control everything. But that's why I pick real estate, because at the end of the day, if it all crashes, I know I can go see it, right? It's a real thing. I love that though. That just shows the confidence that you have in your team, in your abilities, in God, that you just keep pumping that machine. I love that. Because that machine produces and it's able to bless other people. Right. Yes. I love that. What are some of your biblical principles. You've mentioned quite a bit throughout this. So what are some biblical principles that you use day to day in business, especially in an environment where not everybody is a Christian or not everybody does believe what you believe necessarily, but like what are things that you do that you're not by any means rubbing in anybody's face, but that people know there's something different about you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's amazing about modern business is oftentimes the majority of the kind of working world can be a position where people are climbing ladders, and often, if you're not careful, you can climb over others.
Yeah.
And for those who have a faith-based kind of center, I think first of all we have to be careful that we model ourselves, I think, after the greatest leader of all time.
Yeah, amen, that's good.
Of course, is you. No, it's Jesus, that's what I mean. So when you look
So
at
nice.
the model of Jesus, what's amazing about him is he was able to be a person who represented truth, and yet he was famous for having people be attracted to him, particularly the partiers, the sinners, the
everybody.
And so how do we have the effervescence of someone who is a faith-based person, but doesn't make people feel judged, or off-putting?
Yeah.
And so to me, the people forget that about Jesus, because he was known, like the religious people, which is interesting. The only people he ever was hard on
Religious people.
was the religious people.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so he was famous for going and dining and being with the rough crowd, the people who weren't the religious people at all.
Yeah.
And so I find that to be fascinating, because he also had people who would see him and go, "Hey, honey, I'm dropping my nets for 3 years and hanging out with this guy."
Right. Wow. Yeah.
Well, that's not Mr. Depressed judgment guy.
Right. Yeah.
This is an effervescent, excited, joy-filled person. In fact, the Bible talks about how Jesus was anointed with the oil of joy or gladness more than anyone else.
Wow. Yeah.
So we see him in these stained glass pictures, but really, if you read the whole Bible, it's all about his joy and his care for people and his compassion for people. There's another verse that says he didn't come to be served, he came to serve.
I love that.
And when you think about true leadership in business, the leader really needs to be serving others. And so one of my son-in-laws, we have our 4 daughters, our oldest 2 are married, he actually washed my daughter's feet as a part of the marriage ceremony.
Yeah.
And it was just this precious thing as this symbol of, hey, I'm going to kneel and bow and serve. And so I think the greatest leaders are the ones who are visionary, who build great scalable companies, but at the core of that is servant leadership.
Yeah.
And that's hard to find.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's not easy to manage, because usually people who are assertive and me first, jump in, sit in the back seat and watch what happens. And so that's how you build a great culture, I believe.
That me first, I mean, I would say that's more like worldly, right? Like you gotta get yourself to a position, you have to do, it's a lot put on you, which I do think you need full responsibility for your actions and for how things are. But at the same time, like, I think it's interesting that when you do have a peace about what you're doing, when you do have that joy, when you understand that you're not in control of everything, you have to leave room for God to do his part. You need to do your part, but leave room for him to do his part. You don't step on others. You aren't pushing to get to the top. Like the right doors open. And that's what I love about when you're just in his will, right? Like, it's so funny. I have a couple buddies who they don't say their goals out loud or their ideas out loud because they think someone's going to steal them. And I believe opposite. I believe it's an idea that I was given. It's my idea. It's for me to do something with, because God put it on my heart. You could have the same idea and you could have the same company. You could have beat me to the same idea first, but I'm still going to have my version of it. And I don't know. I just think that God has everything lined out for you, right? And he has so many more things that we could not even possibly imagine of all the things. That Steve Harvey analogy when he's talking about Bob passed away and he's walking to the pearly gates and there's all those doors with his name on it. And he gets to the pearly gates finally and he asks the angel, what are all these doors behind me? All these closed doors with my name on it. And then the angel looks at him and says, oh, that's everything you never asked God for. Wow. God had all this stuff for you and you never asked for it.
Yeah.
But
well, and in that same line, you can be given an idea or even a gift.
Yeah.
One of our daughters is a 5-time state track champion. Wow. And phenomenal. She came home once from 4th grade and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm pastoring all the girls and the boys in my class."
Wow.
Wait, are you sure? Yeah, one
That's
of them was
awesome.
crying after we left. So she has a gift.
Yeah.
And she went off to, win state 5 times, and then went off to college and got a scholarship, and amazing.
That's awesome.
But that gift still, she had to go to track practice
100%.
and work out like
Yes.
crazy.
Yep.
So sometimes we think we have this idea or this gift. Well, you may. There's an extremely high level of execution and discipline that it takes, even with that gift.
100%. I'm so glad you touched on that, because it's true. Like, I don't know who said it, but they said, work as if it's up to you, pray as if it's up to God.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we just ask and don't put the action forward. But tithing, how important is tithing?
Tithing, I think, like you, I think we share a real common passion for doing what's right.
Yeah.
And, if you're going to be a Christian, a faith-based believer, one of the things is, you need to demonstrate that you are truly a faith-based person. And one of the things from the Old Testament all the way through was this concept of tithing.
Yeah.
And honestly, God doesn't need money.
Right.
He can create anything he wants. He holds the universe in his hand.
Right.
Right? So it's not him needing it. But our tithe does something to our faith. It grows us extremely well. It's one of those tangible things we can do.
Yeah.
If we do it consistently, I believe it is a real indicator of our seriousness about being a true modern believer who's not kidding around about it.
Yeah.
As well as the fact that when you do that, where this money goes in well-run Christian organizations is they use it to serve.
Exactly.
To give. People have no idea how many people are being taken care of because people are in communities of giving.
Yeah.
And so that's really what's extraordinary about tithing is it shows to God is one of the first indicators where your heart is.
Yeah.
Look at your checkbook lines.
Yeah.
And also what happens to that resource is a downstream blessing that's like nothing else. If it wasn't for faith-based communities, most hospitals are all started by faith-based people.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
the whole idea is a community of serving, which is God's heart.
Yeah.
And so someone said, God, it's not that he, is a lover. He himself is love.
Right.
And one of the best ways to show love is giving. And sometimes the tangible nature of giving to provide a need is extraordinary.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love that. Favorite verse or words to live by?
Yeah, favorite verse for me, I think, is a toss-up between John 15 and the whole concept of abiding.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about the way God's heart is he's not about earning things.
Yeah.
He's about relationship.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
this concept of I'm the vine.
Yeah.
Being able to be grafted into that vine, and the fruit comes because you're connected to the vine.
Yeah.
And fruit doesn't come by earning or effort; it comes by connectedness.
Yeah.
And I think Philippians 3:14 about pressing toward the mark of the high calling. It's this concept of we've got this goal to attain, and it's going to take pressing and leaning into it.
Yeah.
And so I think the ability to have a relational connection and a vision to press into are two of my favorite verses.
Love that. Good. Okay, as we wrap up, I want to know, and if you wouldn't mind please sharing what your God money story is. And that's just a story or a season in your life where you knew whether you were down your last dollar or if it was last loaf of bread, whatever you had, through your obedience, through your faithfulness, God was able to use whatever you had and just blew on it and either got you to where you are today or just got you out of that season or something like that.
Boy, think of a few different experiences where there's been this kind of amazing, moment where needs were met all the way back when, I was down in Phoenix going to college, and you're just a poor student, and my dad would send me these great encouraging notes with, $20 or $40 in it. It was just
that's awesome.
a perfect moment in the timing. Or I remember raising money for this big vision to be able to utilize technology, and we were trying to raise all of this capital, and this phenomenal business leader who had a real heart for people and a heart for God, and we asked him, I think, for $1.5 million and to invest, and he goes, you know what? Well, let me think about that. And I remember he scooted his chair to the other side of the conference table where his wife happened to be, and he asked her about something, and he scooted it back down a few minutes later, and he said, I don't think we can do 1.5, but we can do $2 million. And I remember walking out of there just with this humble gratitude for, wow, we show up, we tell the story, and we watch what God does.
Right.
And you know, when you have people entrusting you with those types of resources that they've worked so hard for, it puts a weight on you of responsibility to want to honor and work really hard, and there's no guarantees, but boy, those are the moments where you're so grateful for people who join you in your vision and then join you in helping you do it. And in our company, we just finished a $15 million capital raise just
congratulations.
Yeah,
congratulations.
And so we've got now 50 plus employees in our team.
That's awesome.
And we're working with some of the most extraordinary brands in the world. And we have this enabling technology that allows us to use mobile engagement with video and text without an app and without a password and without all the normally associated friction. And so far, we're the only company in the world we know of that has this technology, and we're just growing really rapidly. Our offices are over there in the village. And it's just this beautiful environment to grow a team and try to do something that can have effect around the world. And now we're putting the technology to work in the nonprofit and philanthropic and faith-based environments. And just a thrilling time to be alive. And we're just so grateful for a community that's actually making it hard to recruit people because they can't find a house. Our real estate market is so on fire, but
it's insane right now.
It really is. So we're just really honored, and it's a blessing to see companies like yours, that you've got a vision. It was cool to hear your story about the same amazing braces that are serving people to their health today you used when you're a college athlete.
It's kind of
see the way you're running it. I love the way you've set up your operations and the way that you're growing. It's just a phenomenal thing what you're doing here as well, Goose. It's just your heart and your effervescent spirit is a real contagious thing as well. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. It means so much to us.
Honored to be with you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking to the last bit of the video. If you did, please comment below on what you got out of this. I can't wait to go through this and just cherry pick everything. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and if you like what we're doing, please let us know. Always want to get better for you guys, but also want to make sure that I'm staying true to who we are and what we're trying to accomplish as well. So have a great stinking day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Of course.
Love your setup.
I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you got anything from it at all, please comment below, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Please tell us below what you got from this. Check out our other videos listed on the side. Have a great stinking day and be blessed.